Can we start? So, welcome everyone to this gathering. I'm grateful that you embrace this open invitation. This meeting is serving two purposes. One is simply the opportunity to be together, and by being, we mean something very profound. Being together is not just spending time together. It's not learning together. It's not doing something together. It's turning our attention to the most essential, fundamental, existential presence that we all share, that is not personal, that is not specific. Still, it is something that is mostly overlooked in daily life. The most meaningful is the most overlooked. And that is why we need to have these gatherings every now and then, to be reminded, to return to that awesome beauty of our radiant being. So that is the first purpose, and that is purposeless purpose in that sense. And the second purpose is for those of you who are going to become a part of the group of transformation. that we named awaken presence. That will start next week and that will take place twice a month for half a year. This is going to be like an inspirational event preparing us for that deep dive into our spiritual journey. So remember that what we're doing here is not about learning anything new. I have a lot of teachings and methods and courses and all forms of training, but this is nothing of that kind of teaching. In a sense, it is not about teaching, because teaching is always focused on becoming, on gaining more knowledge, more understanding, improving our skills, equipping ourselves with more tools, theories, ideas, some of which are especially entertaining, some are some are practical, some are purely theoretical. But here, this is no teaching. It is more about remembrance. Remembrance is something that I already know, that I have lost access to, that I need some gentle words or a gestures to bring that back from where it always is. So it is about remembrance, and it's also about letting go of learning. It has a lot to do with unlearning. That doesn't mean that we wipe away everything we've studied, learned, and we are going to keep storing that in our minds, but that knowledge. But that certainly means that for a certain time, we have to be unprotected, not carrying with us any kind of baggage. We have to be inwardly naked. So what I'm going to do today, this is going to be a relatively short meeting. I will first talk a little, then we'll have some kind of meditation, guided meditation, and then there will be time for questions. And what I'm going to talk about in this gathering is sharing with you how I meditate. Not just to tell you about my personal experiences, but to try to explain something essential about what meditation is through my own practice. If we can call it practice. For me, meditation is not a practice, you see. I hardly ever use techniques. Techniques are very useful if you want to achieve certain goals, cultivate certain meditative skills, perhaps hone your concentration, have very specific experiences. But when I sit to meditate, I consider this an opportunity to truly open up. And to truly open up, no technique is useful because any technique creates a kind of focus, a kind of limitation. So that is one. When I sit to meditate, I don't sit with a certain technique. On the other hand, I don't sit with just the intention to be in silence, to be in silence in complete openness, because when we just sit with the intention to be in silence, that often lacks a certain direction that our meditation needs. You see, meditation needs to have some very gentle kind of intention and recognition. Our consciousness needs to be involved in meditation. So there can be an exploration, a movement into being. Sometimes this can be done easily through sitting with a question, a certain question, an open question, not a question that is necessarily going to lead to an answer, but a question that helps us direct our attention very softly. So when we sit on the one hand without any specific technique, and on the other hand, not just completely open in a way that might lead us to just drowsiness or hazy states, or I don't know, some twilight zone states. We have a combination of awakened presence. We have a sort of direction, but it is without technique. It is not a practice. So that is just in between. And the beautiful thing about meditation, when it is not a practice, is that when we understand the essence of meditation, we can sit to meditate for hours on end. There is no limit to that meditation because it is so effortless and so blissful that we feel absolutely no reason to become impatient, to want it to be over, because it's not a matter of doing. It is a matter of opening up, and that really has no edge. So, one way in which I see to meditate is approach the meditation as a form of prayer. And let's try to understand what that means, meditating as a form of prayer. What it means to pray through meditation, to pray in the form of meditation. Meditation can be a prayer that unites our hearts and minds. The heart brings the essence of meditation. The mind brings the essence of stillness and consciousness. So meditation as prayer is a combination of devotion and stillness, surrender and being. So what does that mean? This means that when I sit to meditate, the first thing I do, the first thing I allow myself to do in the meditation is recognize, acknowledge my non-self-existence. My non-self-existence. That means that as much as I feel most of the time that I'm the manager of my life, I'm the boss. Really, in actuality, if I look at it very honestly, my mind is not my own, my heart is not my own, my body is not my own. Probably this is the core of all illusion in life. This is where illusion starts, when we think that we own our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our lives. And that kind of sense of ownership is also why our minds, hearts, and bodies are so exhausted. It's so exhausting to try to be bosses of our lives, managers, while we have absolutely no capacity to own this life, because life is inherently not ours. When we believe that life is ours, we exhaust the mind. The mind becomes so ridden with desire and search and struggle, trying to manage a life that it cannot really understand. Now, what does that mean that I acknowledge that I don't own my mind, I don't own my heart, I don't own my body? That means that essentially we don't really know how we came to this place and why. You see? We don't have this kind of ownership that enables us to choose to come to this place, to incarnate, to have a body, to have a mind, to have a life. We don't control our birth. We don't control our death. We are, in this sense, a phenomena. Something that appears and must disappear, like everything else. There are always, when we try to understand this kind of statement, the best ways to understand it is through analogies from nature. When we think of a cloud in the vast blue sky, I'm just looking at one, floating, having a momentary form. It looks, we call it a cloud. When we call it a cloud, it seems like it's an object, you see. And when we call something, we give it a name and it becomes a noun, something that has its own existence. But really, we know that the cloud only appears to be a thing, right? It is actually a clouding. It's a phenomena. It's something in a state of becoming. It's a verb. The cloud is a verb, not a noun. So we look at it and we see, sometimes in a matter of seconds, sometimes a matter of minutes, how it slowly disperses or changes form. So the cloud, surely everyone here will agree, doesn't have its own self-existence. It doesn't control its existence. It appears and disappears. I always like to use another metaphor, which is the tree of life, or the cosmic tree, the tree that is the cosmos. There is a glorious tree that has been here for billions of years, and that is only what we know, because really the term cosmos depends on what we mean by cosmos and what we mean when we say that something began. So think of the cosmos as a giant tree. Each one of us appears on this tree momentarily as a leaf would emerge from a tree. So I am currently, this thing that is talking is a leaf. And this leaf, of course, has its autumn when it begins to wither, when it is very close to falling away. Now, this leaf can think, I have my own life. I don't belong to the tree. But if you stood in front of a tree and you heard a leaf speak like that, you would laugh, right? You look at this petty leaf trying to pretend that it has a life of its own, and you'll know it belongs to the tree. It is empowered by the tree. It is there. It has a momentary existence because the tree is. So this is where my meditation starts. When I sit, I close my eyes, and the first thing that I will do in this kind of meditation is a prayer, as a form of prayer, I immediately acknowledge the mind is not my own, the heart is not my own, the body is not my own. I let that tired, exhausted mind relax into this knowing. I let my tired heart relax into this knowing. I let my tired body relax into this knowing. And I remind myself this fundamental truth that for me, of course, is blissful. Some may find it intimidating. I remind myself that I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like a cloud. I'm just like a leaf. I don't know how I came into this world. I don't know why I came into this world. And if you don't know how and why, if you don't control your existence, that means that you don't control your life in the most fundamental sense. Life is not your own, you participate in it, you are it. You are its expression, not its manager, not its boss. And we don't even breathe by ourselves. The most basic act of living is not done by us, it is involuntary. And it was so from the very beginning. So, this is what we can do in meditation as a form of prayer. We absorb the bossy self, the organizer, the manager. We reabsorb it in the tree or in the sky. We reabsorb it, another analogy from nature, because in nature everything makes absolute sense. It's so obvious that leaves belong to trees, right? It's so obvious that clouds belong to sky. It's so obvious also that a drop in the ocean belongs to the ocean, that no drop can just jump out and say, here I am, that's me, Mr. Drop, or Miss Drop, or whatever. And that's my life. That would be very funny, right? To behold. So that is That is a prayer. It's a form of prayer. I close my eyes and I acknowledge that none of this is my own. I'm not a manager. My whole being belongs to something greater. That's why it's prayer, you see. But it's prayer without the religious drama. It's not like praying in a way that we direct it towards a god or something like that. It is more like that kind of gentle letting go, gentle surrender, a sweet surrender, a silent surrender. We return to the very basic truth about life, about our life. Now, of course, we all know how to be the drivers of our life, in the sense that we have all the faculties that enable us to manage life, right? To do things, to make choices. And there is a certain relative self, relative I. Relative, it means that there is an I, a me, but that me is relative. It is like an organizing element of the body, mind, and heart. That I can choose, it can decide which thoughts to identify with, and all that. It can choose to listen right now or not listen at all. But the thing is about this I that exists is, one, even this I doesn't exist by itself. This I is just a phenomena. And the second thing is that this I doesn't know where to drive, it doesn't know when to drive, and it doesn't know what for. It doesn't have the most fundamental knowledge. It knows how to drive, but it doesn't know why, what for, where to. Because to know that, it must understand why it's here and how it came into being. So this kind of surrender, I don't really know. I cannot be so sure. And it's not so terrible that I don't know. This life is so steeped in mystery that I am also not supposed to know. It's not my job to know. Perhaps during the day, I need to pretend that I know. All of us need to make up some certainties, some relative truths, to be able to function and to be able to make choices. And that is perfectly fine. We all do that. we decide what brings meaning to our life, what psychologists call meaning in life, not meaning of life, but meaning in life. But deep down, we know that that doesn't resolve the mystery. It doesn't cancel it. It doesn't change our reality. So in meditation, we finally say, well, yes, I really don't know, actually, to be honest. I don't know how I came into this life. I don't know why. This is a space of unfathomable mystery. I don't own my heart. I don't know own my body. I don't own my mind, my breath, and therefore I surrender. In this sense, it is very much like the prayer in Judaism that also was repeated by Jesus. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Into your hands I commit my spirit. So that's meditation, really. You see, I sit and I commit my spirit into the hands of the tree, the ocean, the sky. And that's actually very joyful when we begin to identify how restful it is, how real it is, how beautiful it is. And there is the ultimate realization that awaits us at deep inside that kind of meditation, that really, in reality, there is nothing, no one to absorb and nothing to become absorbed in, because really there's always been just the tree, the ocean, the sky, the universe, you see. That has always been the only reality. So it's like a drop realizing that it's always been steeped in this kind of blissful ocean, and that is, it only hasn't paid attention to that fact, and now it looks around it and it relaxes. It doesn't need to own itself. It doesn't need to pretend that it owns itself. So that's meditation as a form of prayer. It's when that kind of center in us, this I, disintegrates, blissfully dissolves into the ocean and finds rest and rejuvenation. So in this sense, yes, this is a prayer, really, but it is a prayer that happens through our entire being. It's not just words that we utter. It's not a heartful expression. It is we give ourselves away through our entire being. That's we meditate in this way. And our prayer is not directed towards someone, some personal God, a certain object of prayer. It is this prayer is turned toward the unknowable of which we are a part. So it is not a dualistic kind of prayer. It is not that we're starting to bow down to something because it is actually meant to end duality and separateness. It immediately brings us back if we just truly acknowledge that. And it is truly to discover that there is no such thing as surrender, because to surrender, you have to have something that is your own, that you give away. Ultimately, it is not so. It is realizing that there is nothing to surrender. There's always been the ocean, the tree, the sky. So that's not just prayer, but the satisfaction, the fulfillment of all prayer. It is, in a sense, when prayer is answered in the deepest sense. And from this wholeness, this absorption, we re-emerge from meditation. When this kind of prayer meditation is concluded, we will realize that our mind, our heart, our body are deeply silent, because there's been a profound relief. This sense that I don't need to be the boss of my life. I don't need to own it. I don't know how to own it. That is a deep kind of healing, healing the wound of separation. And this is the deepest wound of them all, not our traumas, not our childhood memories. It is this kind of alienation from the tree. When we no longer have that alienation, we act from that wholeness, to which we belong. So this is the essence of prayer, and this is the essence of meditation. They're not really two distinct things. So I think that now we can answer some questions, and then we will conclude with some guided meditation. There was one time when I had an interview with someone, and then I mentioned briefly that in mystical enlightenment, what we realize is that our life is not our own, and the interviewer seemed a bit horrified. He said, "I don't think that people would be happy to hear like that, something like that," and that was indeed clear that in our modern society that is so secular, we want to believe that we exist by ourselves. That's the point. There are some moments in life, especially death, of course, when we realize that we can pretend, but we cannot ultimately prove that wrong. You see, we cannot truly cancel this reality because it's the very essence of everything. So let's see if there are any questions. Yes.
From maybe Effie, I'm not sure, it's one long name.
Okay.
When I let go into this truth you speak about, sometimes a sadness appears, a kind of pain. It feels somehow like a thick layer I have to dive through to reach my peace, joy, and strength. Does this have to do with the wound of the separation from which I belong to?
Exactly. Exactly. So you already intuit the answer because it's this pain when we begin to touch that kind of reality. We feel also the heart's longing. The it's the subtlest pain that we carry within our chest. You see, it's this feeling of not belonging, of loneliness, and who knows how many lifetimes this loneliness has been carried in that heart. You see, it's this sense of being a wanderer, someone who walks around aimlessly, having, of course, all sorts of experiences, but not really knowing where that heart belongs to, what is the origin of existence, and what it feels like to be again that happy leaf on the tree. You see, and because the leaf, when it belongs to the tree, it immediately becomes one with the tree. That's the point. It doesn't experience itself as some kind of separate leaf, small leaf. It feels immediately the grandeur, the beauty, the enormity of the tree. And that is becomes its own consciousness. So, but we have to go through that pain to follow it all the way to its root. And in that pain, there is a longing, and in that longing, there is this recognition, and in that recognition, there is also release. So we have to go all the way until these layers are removed. Yes.
Petra,
Yes.
if my life, my heart, my spirit, my breath are not mine and do not belong to me and don't exist separately, isn't it also true for the pain that I feel in my body? My pain is not mine, even though I experience it through my body.
Well, these are two separate things because first of all, I really appreciate this kind of inquiry, this kind of contemplation. We need to ask these questions. We need to look into the origin of the pain, and also, first of all, when I say my heart is not my own, my body is not my own, my mind is not my own, that means one thing, very simply: I am not my own. You see, the very sense of I is something that emerges from something else, from the ground of existence. And that is, so if I don't belong to myself, I belong to something else. And that's exactly this kind of blissful recognition. And now there is pain, and it depends which kind of pain. Is it the pain that everyone needs to go through in this life? Pain as a part of life, of course. Yes, this pain, the pain of illness, the pain of getting old, or the decay of the body, the pain of that is unavoidable. That pain is a part of life, and in that sense, you are aware of this pain, but it is also just a part of that stream, this ever transforming stream. And there is another kind of pain. Another kind of pain is the pain that is the result of this alienation, the result of this effort to become bosses of life. The pain that comes as a result of desire. The pain that is the result of searching in the world for happiness. You see? Because when the drop decides to jump out of the ocean and wants to have its own life, at first that's really exciting, but then it also feels very partial and very isolated, and then it looks for all kinds of things in the world to make it feel complete again. That is a different kind of pain. It's a psychological, spiritual pain. And that pain is, in a sense, is the pain of our own illusion, you see, our own forgetfulness. So when I ask, why am I most of the day suffering? Why am I in pain? Why am I unhappy? Why do I feel empty-hearted or confused or disoriented? That is because I try so hard to feel complete through things that could never give me that. I try that through sex, romantic relationships, fame, self-fulfillment, career, emotional recognition, family. I try all that. We've all tried all that. And still there is this kind of sense that along with the joys, we also we go through pain. And that is the pain of illusion. So that illusion is ours in a sense. But how easy it is to break that illusion. This is why we can meditate like that. Start with the essential facts of life. Facts. Yes.
Beatrice.
Yes.
So I don't have to achieve anything. I'm always on my soul path. If I take myself out of everything and let it happen, actually just perceive and follow my heart impulses, is that right?
Oh yes. Oh yes. So let's start with the first sentence. I don't have to achieve. I'm always on my soul's path, right? As long as I make sure that I step out of the way and follow my heart's choices, right? This is basically what you're pointing at. That is exactly it, because I think that one of the greatest illusions that our thinking has come up with, and is this thing of the need to achieve in order to be fulfilled, and or to do certain things in order to be on the soul's path. It is, I always say, when you look at the universe, you look around, do you ever have this thought that the universe needs to still to achieve something in order to be itself, in order to be the universe, in order to be fulfilled? Do we ever look at stars, at mountains, at bees, trees, and we think, if they only achieve that, if they only reach that goal, they would finally be fulfilled. But with humans, we always think like that, that there's always some kind of a missing step toward fulfillment. And because of this belief, we always feel unfulfilled. And why do we put ourselves under this strain? This is because we feel that we need to prove our own existence, you see? You isolate yourself, then you need to prove your existence as a drop. You can only feel complete when you sense the completeness of the tree, of the ocean, of the sky. And then you feel that kind of gorgeous satisfaction, finally. And that satisfaction isn't because you've done something to deserve it, but because you've finally released yourself from the illusion that you're supposed to reach satisfaction. Satisfaction, fulfillment is found on the meditation cushion. You see? This is where we find satisfaction. And not because we reach enlightenment, but because we realize that we don't know. So how could we even know that what kind of thing we need to become in order to finally be satisfied? It all doesn't make sense. It's all found in that restfulness, that relaxation. Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
this way of meditating resonates a lot with me.
Uh-huh.
And there seem to be many pointers that bring about that opening, be it a prayerful bowing down of the heart or an instant of self-inquiry. I found that the response seems to be the dissolution and opening, this glimpse, but it doesn't remain. Soon there is someone again being quiet, or the bliss creates some mild daydreaming.
Yes.
Then trying to look at this becomes some mental game like catching noodles in a soup and not real opening.
Yes.
So how to be available for a sustained opening?
Yes. Yes. That's a good point. There is the opening, and then there is the narrowing, and that is quite unavoidable. And the important thing is not to try to look at these alternating states. There are two ways. One is to look at the illusion that is created. You see, if I look at the illusion that is created, this kind of I look with curiosity, with interest, not trying to dissolve or change it. I look at the mind as it is searching, as it is hungry. And if I simply look at it and I understand it, that immediately leads to opening, you see? Because opening is not a state achieved, you see? Opening is reality. Opening means being in reality. So if I try to reach opening, that is not opening, that is closing. There has to be, all I need to do is see the illusion. That is why the meditation as prayer isn't about thoughts, new thoughts. It's about what illusion is. My illusion is my life is my own, my mind is my own, my heart is my own, my body is my own. This is my illusion. I belong to myself. Now I release that illusion. I see it. In that release, there is opening. Now, when this is this becomes perhaps less clear and less or more obscured, what you can do is simply return your intention and your contemplation. That means bring back a question, reflection, something that reminds your heart and mind what it is that you're meditating on, you see? that your meditation has a gentle direction. We are not supposed to just be in some kind of dazed silence. This is what sometimes people do. This kind of meditation gets them nowhere. You can sit like that for thousands of years. There has to be some insight in meditation. And for insight, there has to be intention and a certain very gentle kind of question. Like something that I try to understand, something that I observe, that I contemplate. Otherwise, there is no focus in a healthy sense. So if I sit for meditation and I say, let us now get in touch with the reality that life is not my own. That is an intention, you see. It's not a technique. It's an intention. It's I'm exploring something. I'm getting in touch with a certain reality. I'm going to look into a certain illusion. And that gives my meditation an immediate shift. It becomes energized. It becomes potent. Any last questions?
From Lena,
Yes.
I have a question about engagement in life.
Yes.
I see projects come and go, lovers come and go, and right now many things feel random and I don't want to engage as much.
Yes.
But there is sadness around this.
Again, please. I see lovers come and go. I see projects come and go. Yes.
And the question is around about engagement in life.
Yes.
I don't want to engage as much.
And the sadness is related to?
And there is sadness around this.
It's very important to understand that we engage with life whether we want it or not. You see, we always engage with life. Even when you decide not to engage with life, you engage with life in a different way. There's no way to avoid it. So then you might as well engage with life. You might as well bring your heart into life, because when you bring your heart into life, you bring passion, you bring your presence. Life becomes meaningful through that. Life becomes valuable when you are present. So when we just watch life go by, life in its myriad changes, that life loses its flavor, its fragrance, its color. The reason we steep ourselves in the presence of the ocean, the sky, the tree, is because that also is the foundation of presence in life. For me, you see, I am like a cloud, or like a leaf, or like a flower, or a volcano. It doesn't matter, but nature is full of energy. You see, nature is engagement itself. So this sense of wholeness, bring it into your life. Let it flow through your heart, through your mind, through your body, and life becomes immediately meaningful. And that so that sadness will go when you bring your all that realization in the form of presence in life. And sometimes you can sit for meditation to meditate, and then with the question, what is it like to engage with life? And meditation can give you that insight, that fragrance, that perfume of being engaged, because again, we don't have the choice whether to engage with life. We are life. So the only question is whether we bring our heart, our presence into it. So let's now just close our gathering by meditating together and for just a few minutes. And to do that, we will focus on the top of our heads, physically, at the top center of our heads. Feel the crown of the head. How it is, it borders with upper space. So then feel this border, this edge that both separates and connects head and space. It is where the eye ends and where space begins. So it's as if just above your head there is already no eye. There is something greater. A greater kind of awareness. Now, with your awareness, shift your attention upwards, as if you're moving up with your awareness above the head into the space. See if you can move as high as possible with your awareness. As if from your head there's like an infinite thread that goes all the way up into the edge of existence and beyond. So feel all that space above. All this infinite space. And feel how that border separating the head and space gradually dissolves. And so your awareness has no edge. In a sense, not even a beginning. Peer into that space. Very good. So I hope this meeting has inspired you to meditate in a way that is conscious and rich and profound, that opens the door to new pathways of exploration. Remember always your inner space is infinite. There's no end to it. It's not possible to get tired of it, to fully understand it. You are the universe. The universe is infinite. So become these inner explorers, adventurers. That's one of the greatest joys possible. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, for meditating together. Goodbye.